I think that Bigfoot is eating elk. I think it's eating big game, and I think that it's following the game up and down the elevation column with the seasons. As a big game hunter, I know that as the seasons warm up, they really prefer it to be cooler. So deer and elk and a lot of animals like that want to be as high as they can while not being in the snow. It's cooler, it's more comfortable for them, and they like being away from people and things like that. So elk and deer, and I'm sure other animals too, will go up and back down. And that's what I mean by the elevation column. There's a story, though, to support what I'm saying. So let's get into that right now. I recently heard of an elk hunter in Colorado that was tracking a herd of elk across a snowfield. And in the snowfield was obviously lots and lots of elk tracks. But then on as he went, another set of tracks came in and joined it. And those footprints were gigantic footprints that looked like a person's, but obviously he was thinking this is Bigfoot. Just these huge prints. You probably could find pictures of them online. Bigfoot tracks following elk in the snow in Colorado. But as he followed them, he realized that obviously this thing was hunting this herd as well. Now, he never saw the Bigfoot or vocalizations, at least not in the version of the story that I read. But what I really want to hone in on is that this is very high elevation. Now, I believe that the sightings in places like Colorado in the low country drastically go down as it gets warmer. As it gets into the summer months, you've got way less sightings down in the lower country, and you get sightings like this a little bit higher up. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, well, the vast majority of all sightings are from Northern California to Washington State. Well, as we've got lots of proof with other animals that behavior is not a blanket thing. When you've got the abundance of lush, borderline temperate rainforest, then you don't need to migrate up and down the mountainside in the same way. In a place like Colorado, where winters can be harsh, you want to be as high as you can while still not being messed around with people. And so the snow is and the cold will push them lower, but they're reluctant. At the end of the winter, they're quick to go back up. And I think that if we, as Bigfoot hunters or people that are interested in this, I think that there's a lot to that because they're going to be maybe less. I think that they're going to be less interested in the temperature and more interested in the massive amounts of calories that they demand, unless they hibernate like bears, which is a distinct possibility. But if they need to just survive and hike around and do the sort of things that people have reported to see them do, they're going to need something like a deer or an elk. And this story that I just shared with you makes a lot of sense. Down in the south, there's also lots of abundance. You're not going to have mountains to go up and down. But I think in a place like Colorado, in a place like Wyoming, New Mexico, Arizona, somewhere that's got like a lot more extremes and temperatures, I think that you could draw a line on an elevation and kind of have a good idea where you're going to find these animals. I love the casts of Bigfoot tracks. I love them. But as a hunter, I can't help but think to myself, at some point, the eyes need to go up. Like I could follow a deer tracks, but if I don't raise my eyes, I might miss what's right in front of me. And that could be a bushy tail of a whitetail jumping behind a bush 50 yards ahead of me silently. And so I think that like we as people interested in the outdoors and into these monsters that could or couldn't, maybe they do or do not exist, I think eyes up, because I think that you could be interested in looking at the ground too much and miss what's right in front of you. And I think that using the knowledge that they very well might be following game animals, which wouldn't give them enough fat, but it would give them enough protein. They could get their fat elsewhere. That could give a valuable band that's moving up and down that doesn't exist necessarily in the Pacific Northwest in the same way. It might be more luck based. There's Roosevelt elk that live in Western Washington that just kind of are permanent residents around Mount St. Helens. That's great. That'd be a good place to look, but it doesn't change like a band. You know what I mean? Like I think that like if a Bigfoot hunter wants a good place to start, I don't live in Colorado, but if I lived in one of those places, I would go right where the elk are moving, right where the deer are migrating, within that migration and that column. And I think that if you keep your eyes up, think about like the sort of stories, and as we go forward, we'll figure out more and more too, and note when the sightings were and when the vocalizations were heard. And I think that we'll start to really figure out behavior. And then we can have our eyes up and maybe we can really lay eyes on this thing. So anyways, if you like this, like and subscribe, and we'll catch you on the next one. See ya.